Good to see you, everyone. My name is Robbie Howell,
My name is Lee Haber.
and we're going to be continuing his lifetime life today, the life of Pyle. When last we left our hero, he had been chewed out by his hewer slash father Cernuno, and was just being led away by his butler slash retainer Mingkis. Anything you'd like to add to that, Lee, before we jump in?
Nope.
Excellent. In that case, let's take it up from the point where we last left off, where Mingkis was leading Pyle away down one of the inner corridors of his father's castle. At this point, you're going to be brought back to your own personal chambers for a barbing session, as described last time. En route there, what would you like to do, if anything?
En route there, I'm going to take note of the decorations on the interior inside of the house, especially in like the hallways. Just observe, and I'm going to start thinking, looking around for things that Pyle would know that wouldn't really be missed if they went missing.
Absolutely. Well, there's a couple of things of note here. First of all, every piece of decoration is incredibly finely made. Beautiful filigree and finely woven tapestries and elaborate pieces of woodworking. Something that might strike a modern person would be that every single one of these pieces has a rather rough hewn but incredibly intricate look. This is because, of course, ringbeards have massive fricking hands, but are incredible craftsmen and will take enormous pains to make things perfect and symmetrical, while also leaving in deliberate asymmetrical pieces, kind of like some medieval Japanese artisanship, if you're familiar with that, where they would deliberately screw something up slightly to give it kind of a homespun look. So every single piece that you walk past, not only can you spot the deliberate asymmetries and the deliberate mistakes, you can almost tell by looking how much effort went into it. Sometimes ringbeards will put thousands of hours into a single project. In fact, you even made a couple of these decorations yourself as some of your training in the arts and crafts, of which you have extensive experience and is one of Pyle's strong suits in his all-rounded education. Now, the trick with things going missing is that ringbeards have almost perfect memories.
Mm,
Someone will notice if something
this is
goes
fine.
missing.
This is fine. Pyle will I will consider this and say I can get something later.
Indeed.
I'm gonna be needing a something. What that something is, we shall see.
Yeah. Along those lines, in terms of some of the more interesting things, if swiping were to be done, would be some of the showpiece weapons that you know to be present on a great many of the walls, as well as some of the plaques of genealogy, which show they're effectively like certifications of kinship. Like, I can attest that I am this person's ancestor. Those are very important. So, anything else you'd like to do as you're being brought back up to your chambers?
Uh, well, I'm gonna just check my pockets really quick because I don't think I've done that yet.
No, you have not.
Anything?
An excellent question. Looking through, yeah, you have a number of things actually. Pyle's clothing does have quite a few different pockets on them, and the first thing of note is money. He actually has a decent amount of money on his person. Now, ringbeard money is in the form of beads that are in different shapes and different colors and are coated in a glaze. And this particular glaze is enchanted such to be pretty much unforgeable. Like they are only able to fabricate this glaze in specific centralized mints, for want of a better term.
Mm,
This particular currency is called krun. You can spell it however is phonetic for you. And the amount of money on your person would be, it's very hard to translate because you're in a completely different society and setting, but
yeah, of course,
if
of
you were to
course.
approximate, you'd have like 400 bucks worth of krun on your person. So Pyle
This
ain't
is good.
traveling cheap. Additionally, he also has a handkerchief, which is pretty common among ringbeards. Ringbeard's spittle is a mild adhesive, and it can be very annoying to get it in your beard and face. Um, they're not like the kind to spew everywhere, but just, it happens as you're talking.
Yeah.
And he also has a whittling knife and a whittling awl on his person as well. The awl is a particularly useful tool for ringbeards because their big fat fingers have trouble with really precise movements. So if you have an awl with a fine point, you can kind of get in there and do precision detailing work. That's about the summary of what he has in his pockets.
Yeah. Would there be like a little bit of practice wood on my person?
Um, Not at the moment. Right before you had inhabited Pyle, he had been working on some random sticks he had found, just because it's a way of calming himself down. But he discarded those when he walked to the edge.
This is fair. Well, for now, I will take out the awl
Mm-hmm.
and just sort of twizzle it a little bit in my hand, sort of get a feel for what sort of fine motor control I can perform.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like dig under my nail, just under my nails a bit to sort of get any grime out.
Yeah, very easily done. Not only are your fingers very tough and can take the pinching of an awl, but you have a lot of crap under there as well.
Yeah.
You have the awl feels incredibly familiar in your hand. How's the way I can describe it? The surgery on a grape meme. Like it this with even though your big fat fingers can't do a whole lot by themselves, with this all you actually have quite incredible fine motor control just because of the amount of time you've practiced with it. The arts are one of Pyle's specialties, and he is already a rather dexterous ringbeard due to his construction.
Yeah. And as I recall, the ringbeards also don't. They have more than 5 digits on a hand, correct?
They do only have 5 digits on a hand, but those digits are very large.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, I was thinking. Um, I thought we had more digits. This is acceptable. Well, no, I will just get a feel, and I'm going to start tracing out a couple just designs on my hand, just
Mhm.
like a set of rings. Just getting a feeling, starting to get the image of something that I'm going to create soon in my mind, and sort of get a feeling for what I'm going to do. Because right now, Pyle's currently thinking of is the fact that possible trial by combat is at hand,
Mm,
and as someone who is not wholly strong himself, their tricks are going to need to be employed.
that's true. Are you tracing deep enough to actually leave a mark?
No, this is very much just sort of think it out, sort of allow it to play in the theater of my mind, and just sort of again begin sort of lightly blueprinting. I won't need again if I have perfect memory, I don't need to leave a visible reminder
Mm-hmm.
or near perfect memory. So again, and I know that I'm good with woodworking. Have I done any metalworking at all?
Pyle has, and he's quite good at it, but he's much better at filigree and decorative metalworking than at blacksmithing. Blacksmithing requires rather of a heavy touch that he has a little bit of trouble mustering.
This is fine.
He can do stuff like plow blades and like tools. Those are pretty easy, mostly because they're not made of the really, really tough metals. But some of the tougher metals, he just cannot muster the strength to dent them, even when they're hot.
Hmm. Well, it's a good thing that machines exist. Time to
Somewhat.
design them. So
Exactly.
time to design them.
Yeah, precisely. While you're considering all this, by the way, Mingkis is chattering on and is pretty easy to tune out. Neither does he necessarily seem like he is waiting for you to respond at any particular moment. But by this point, you
Oh,
guys have reached your chamber.
perfect.
As you are brought inside, it's not grand but it is quite beautiful with a lot of lovely handmade designs. Um, Ringbeards do sleep, but they don't really do the whole bed thing. Beds are rather uncomfortable for them because they're so heavy, they just kind of down into the ground. And so instead, ringbeards sleep on what they actually call thrones. Like it's a big, comfy chair. You know what I mean? So you have a lovely throne that has some fine curtains on either side, and your room has two big windows with two big curtains. And again, curtains are a luxury because they're all handmade here. And more interestingly, you have a lovely great scroll rack that is completely well populated with all sorts of reading material and personal journals. This is another thing that Pyle is very proficient in is writing and reading.
Mm. I might. I might end up going and reading over Pyle's journals just because, I guess I can recall everything pretty well, but
Mm-hmm.
it's always good to sort of view exactly what the thoughts felt like at the time. So
Indeed.
that's something I'll keep in the back pocket. Would Pyle have access or in his room or be able to acquire texts on these celestial tongues?
He has an introductory scroll, but such knowledge is very jealously protected by those in the know. Pyle is being somewhat trained in what is called courser lore, and coursers are the Ringbeard name for planetary bodies like celestial bodies, which are of course essential to celestial tongues. And he's being taught this by the court astromancer, whose name is Aubroque. Aubroque, in case you need it.
I will, yes. Thank you.
But these classes have only started relatively recently because your father, Sir Nuno, determined that he didn't really want you exploring your celestial tongue very much in the first place, and only now that you're a bit older is he even willing to let you kind of learn about it.
Mm. Well, I'm about to start experimenting.
Mm-hmm. Mingkis at this point is hurrying you over to a smaller seat next to a big wash basin in your room. You guys actually do have plumbing here. It's very simple, like aqueduct style plumbing, but it's plumbing nonetheless, and therefore he starts to pump up some water with which he can wash and comb out all of your massive ruff.
I will sit and allow myself my ruff to be combed.
Minkus's incredibly dexterous little hands go zipping all over your beard and hair as he clucks and fusses and picks out all of several days' worth of accumulated detritus, while also finally oiling and combing things out and starting to form them into complex braids. He is able to do this at enormous pace. His kind is very dexterous and has a great eye for these sort of things, one of the reasons the Ringbeards love them so much. And he's done this for you since he was born, or hatched specifically. Now, what would you like to do as you're being groomed, if anything, or would you like
As
to
I'm being
skip?
groomed, I'd like to recall what I know about the formal wrestling duels.
Yeah, you've been to a number of them. Ringbeard wrestling is. It's not necessarily like a codified or ritualistic thing. It is more a. It's like Pancration, you know what I mean? They know what works well and they do it. And they don't have like any holds barred, so you can hit wherever you like. They don't obviously have genitals, and as such, they don't have an obvious weak spot that you can exploit in that way. Even going for the eyes is fully acceptable. From what you can remember, it usually involves two ringbeards bull rushing each other, slamming into each other like a pair of elephants, and pushing until one of them is strangled on the ground.
Mm. Well, that's both. That's useful and not useful, given my make.
Indeed.
The bull rushing part, But I am of a lighter material, so I'm
Very.
also likely to be faster.
Much faster. In fact, you've raced against other ringbeards, both your age and older, when you've been able to coax them into doing it. Ringbeards don't love running. Um,
Mm.
and ringbeards, they're like locomotives. It takes them a while to build up speed, but once they're running, they're quite fast.
Yeah.
Just because, they're big, right? But you can turn on a dime way more effectively than most ringbeards can, and can get up to speed much faster. So even for your size, you can usually, even though you're young, you can usually win in a race.
Yeah. And would I also be more flexible because of my make?
Drastically.
Okay, this is good.
Yeah.
Not great, but good.
Indeed acceptable. Anything else you would like to consider or do as Mingkis is wrestling you out of your jerkin and into a clean one?
Uh, are the I'm gonna again I'm trying to sort of recall or not recall, but see what I know, see what this body knows, and what are so I know that there's these celestial tongues. Are there any? Is there any other kind of sort of imbuement of magic into things or items or objects that seem to be able to channel the celestial tongue more or less than
Yep.
other things?
Well, there is a more common form of magic, and there's many kinds of magic besides. Um, you know for a fact that the Fisk have their own magic, as do many of the other quote unquote servile races. But among the Ringbeards, they have another form of common magic in the form of spell tablets. And spell tablets, as with many other things, is drawn from the celestial bodies, the coursers, and it involves kind of priming this rather complicated mechanism that almost functions like clockwork. And it requires a combination of things to work properly and must be tuned by celestial movements. So it's very hard to make them, but anyone can use them once you have one.
Mm, okay. And would I have I mean, I know that there's I mean, since there's wrestling combat and stuff. Is there would I have access to books, sort of, like Art of War style
You
books,
have one
and
on
like,
tactics. That's for battle tactics, though, and not for wrestling.
mm, well, I would I do I know if there are any that I may not have at the moment that are more about the one-on-one, sort of like, uh, like fencing books,
Yeah, like a treatise.
talking about, yeah, that sort of thing.
So you know they exist. Unfortunately, again, you're kind of a more of a backwoods fief. So you have like your collection of scrolls is like probably 5% of all the scrolls and books in your fief. So they're not common, and in where you are, and as such, you don't have one, though you're pretty sure they exist, especially in a larger fief or in a bigger collection.
Do I know if my hewer would have one, or at least have access to it?
He would probably have access to it through one of his friends' collections, but Sir Nuno is not a fan of reading.
Well, might have to talk to Sir Nuno then,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't really want to throw Mingkis into this. I feel like killing Mingkis won't help anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I also, uh what's the clause on win lose in the wrestle? Not in the sense of how is it done, but like more politically, what does it mean?
So, typically speaking, if you it depends on what the terms of the duel are. If you are being brought to the Great Stone Table as a charge for a crime, it will typically be to the death if it's a bad crime, or to severe injury followed by imprisonment of some kind if it's a less bad crime.
This is a bad crime.
This is a very bad
is
crime.
this is murder.
So
So
ideally, you would want to get formal forgiveness, or yeah, a formal forgiveness from Iburi's Oxbron. That's again the family unit, that the thing that
mhm,
replaces a family unit.
yeah.
Um, Ideally, you'd like that because that would pardon you from your crime. But if they were as mad as they might be, they might request a duel to the death. And if you were to win the duel and kill the other one, or in some cases you can spare them, you're always allowed to spare someone in a duel to the death, and it typically means um, you have to drop it. You know what I mean? Like both you and the other person have to drop it. Um, but oh yeah, if you were to win and kill or spare, it would mean that they would be legally barred from taking further actions against you. They might anyways, and this is how like feuds get started, which is what your father was trying to avoid. Because feuds, ringbeards live a long time, and feuds can last hundreds of years.
Mm. Well, and running away is probably not a good idea.
You won't be able to show
I'd
your
probably
face
be
around here anytime soon, and you might be hunted by Iburi's Oxbron if they're really boiled, but it's an option.
well. I feel like, especially from what we've seen so far of the emotional state of most ringbeards, they leaving would be would even sort of boil up their ire even more so.
It very likely would. Um, there is a possibility that if his Oxbron didn't forgive you, but also didn't want you to die, they might request you get banished, which could kind of come to the same thing. So there's multiple options there.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, Mingkis is putting the finishing touches on your braids and is finalizing. He's put on a gold torque around your neck and is buttoning up your the last buttons on your tunic, and is throwing a cloak about your shoulders. He steps back to admire his handiwork, looking critically and seeing if there's any mistakes. Anything else you would like to do?
At the moment, not without doing some heavy reading. Do I have my own workshop or like
No, you
a
have to
like
use
work table
others.
in my room?
Oh, work table you do. You have a small, heavy, like small but tough stone table upon which you do a lot of projects. You have a bunch of tools there and little half-finished projects as well.
Okay. And one more thing about the wrestling duels. I assume that no weapons are allowed. It is body to body.
Almost always. There are some very rare exceptions where a weapon might be allowed, but it's typically for what you might call court martials or like more high-profile cases. Um, that are also severe. So, if, for example, a military commander abandoned his post, he might be put against several of his own soldiers, all of whom had weapons.
And they're okay. Because right now, I'm currently thinking of effectively trying to make a tool that will assist me.
It's possible if you
Especially,
were detected, you would be probably heavily penalized or at
yeah.
least pilloried for it. But if you can make it sneaky, then that's an option.
Well, I was thinking, we've the Ringbeards have all these little metal ringlets in their
They
beards,
do.
and if I were to make again the current thought process is as what are Iburi's Oxbron his the person who I might the people who I'd probably be fighting, they're all stone,
You
right?
don't actually know that. There are probably a wide variety of materials, glass or metal or wood like you, maybe even something weird like mud or sand. Those are options. So
Mm.
there's quite a wide variety of pardon me. There's quite a wide variety of Ringbeard building materials. At this point, by the way, Mingkis has decided that it is sufficient. He says,
Very good. You at least look presentable in my book. Um, dinner?
Pyle's going to sort of shake out of his thought and sort of nod to Minkus. No, he's not speaking right now. He's trying. He's very in his thoughts, especially with the all that is transpiring at this point. So it's
Minkus,
sort of
Minkus doesn't push the issue.
He says, Very well, young master. I will be back shortly and then leave you to your time.
And he scurries out of the room.
because currently I was thinking of effectively like if I was up against someone who was made of stone or something like metallic or something hard, fitting one of the rings with some sort of cut jewel, like something dense enough that could sort of pierce and deal and be and help inflict
Mm-hmm.
some element of damage to help at least cripple motion.
A
But
clever idea. It would really depend on who you're going up against. And it's
yeah,
true, though, that Ringbeards don't usually think to do stuff like that. They're not the sneaky type. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Now that you're
Well,
alone,
I am not a ringbeard now.
indeed,
I am more.
much
So
more. What would you like to do from here now that you are alone?
I'm gonna go over to the work table.
Absolutely. Making your way over, there's a variety of tools, some scattered out, most put away neatly. There's a couple of furls of parchment with scribbled notes. There's a number of half-done projects. You have an armillary sphere that you were trying to thread earlier on. You have a couple of little statues, most depicting probably, actually, you remember, most depicting like your ancestors as they are depicted in tapestries or statues around the kingdom. You also have another one where you were painting. Rainbeards don't often paint, but when they do, they quite enjoy it. And you were painting clouds. And then in another area, you can see that you had been working on kind of a stucco sculpture of some kind. In this case, this stucco sculpture was trying to depict a mountain, and then you had been planning on like effectively gluing little bits of cloth to make it look like it was forested. So Pyle's a very artsy person, and his art projects are scattered throughout the room.
Okay. Well, in that case, I definitely think it could at least behoove Pyle's sort of artistry, sort of as he's somewhat known. I don't know if he's known for it,
He
but
is known
if
for
like
it.
anyone. Okay. In that case, if I'm known for my artistry, then I definitely think hiding a trick in some artistic element or garment would be good for the
Yeah.
upcoming possibility of combat. But main thing I want to do is I want to take like a simple like a piece of wood or piece of clay, piece of something simple,
Hmm.
something just a building block. And what is it? What has it felt like the last two times? Not in this like physically, not emotionally at least, but first off physically when I've used this celestial tongue.
So physically, you haven't noticed any difference beyond the simple, beyond the natural physical consequences of being in an elevated state of passion or tension. You know what I mean? Heart rate
Yeah.
increases, mind clouded, thumping in your ears, the whole works. But beyond that, you haven't felt anything different.
Okay. And but every time it's been done, it has been at at some sort of emotional peak.
Oh, yeah. And always one of anger or agitation or fear.
Okay.
Excuse me, Lee. One
Uh
second. I think I might be getting a phone call. Am I getting a
oh
phone
right, no
call?
worries. Well, in the meantime, I'll talk to the world.
I
I've
was
been
getting a phone call.
we're getting a phone call.
Oh,
Heck,
screw it. They should know not to call me now. Okay, carry on. Pardon me.
it's all right. Um, well, uh, so what I'm gonna do is because I now understand that this magic is sort of tied to the planets and tied to the movement of celestial bodies.
Hmm.
I would like to sort of look at a calendar
Yep. You have a big one.
and
You have two, actually.
I would like to sort of plot down when each of these instances occur. Any of these instances occurred. I
That's
feel
a
like
great idea.
there's been. I know there's been at least two. I don't know if there's been more.
Now, fortunately, you and Pyle are thinking in line because he's actually done this before and you know where those notes are.
Oh,
He has an
perfect.
extensive chart where he tracked every heavenly body's movement that he knew of, and he knows of like several hundred, to be clear, and looked for patterns. And he could not find a single pattern. You can check the notes yourself and see the beautiful depictions of movements of planetary bodies, where they were positioned in the sky, which ones were waxing and waning. This is not just for phases, like most of these planets don't have phases, but waxing and waning is a term used by the Ringbeards in astrology to refer to which ones are kind of faint in the sky, which ones are strong in the sky, that sort of thing. Not a single pattern could he find, which is something in line, somewhat in line with what he was told about his celestial tongue, which is that it is of an unknown courser, an unknown celestial body, because all tongues are connected to a specific celestial body.
Okay. So in that case, um, I mean, for all I or Pyle even know, this body, whatever it is, could be sort of off it in some other system,
Yep.
which is. But in the meantime, I'm going to assume that it is in whatever galaxy or the Ringbeards
Yep.
currently
And of
sort of
course, Ringbeards
consider.
don't have
Uh,
words like galaxy. They have theories about that, but you, as Lee, know that such things
I
exist.
I do. So I'm going to be bringing in my knowledge for a sec, and what I'm going to start doing, because something else Lee knows about is gravity.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start. This is going to take time, and I'm willing to lose some rest over this to at least get a good way through. I would like to start charting out, like taking effectively like the celestial like paths, like the and
Mm-hmm.
orbits that things take,
Yep.
and look at the history of them and see if there are places where there's orbital anomalies, where there might be some instance of a separate like a separate gravitational pull that hasn't been charted.
That's a frickin' great idea. Now, there's 3 complications with the idea. First of all, you know about these planetary movements based from 2 sources. First of all, you remember the heaven towers that are dotted around?
Yeah.
Those. But second of all, from book learning, like you know theoretically where the orbits are, how long they take, where they should be at any given time. Now, your heaven towers that are local to here are too small to effectively track such small deviations. So you would need to go to a larger city or some other hub that had very powerful heaven towers and use those towers to try to pick out those anomalies. They might have even spotted them themselves already, but not be able, obviously, to chart them to you. So, in summary, you don't have the resources to execute that plan right now, but it is nonetheless an excellent plan.
And there wasn't like any of these instances. They were just in moments of passion, correct?
Yes.
Or in moments of high emotion, high adrenaline.
Yes, and I should note, Pyle has had plenty of moments of high adrenaline in his life that this hasn't happened.
Interesting. Well, something Pyle is currently considering putting a bag over his head and seeing how long he can go and trying to say a thing and seeing if that adrenaline will kick something.
Mhm.
But he's gonna wait to do that.
Mingkis comes back in with food for him, by the way.
Yeah.
Mingkis does not say anything, gives Pyle a polite little bow and a small smile, and then leaves politely.
Yep. This is fine. I will. Now that he's gone, I will. Is there a lock on the door?
There is a lock on the door. Well, a
Lock
bar,
the door.
more specifically.
I'm gonna bar the door. I'm gonna close the windows, if shades, if there are any.
Yep, your curtains.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take that little building block that I had before, and I am going to meditate as focus as I can, just on the exact feeling that I was having in the moment of when I spoke the word that decimated the guy who I most recently killed.
Yeah, Iburi.
Yeah, Iburi, thank you. And I'm going to just let that sort of fester for a bit. I want to, again, since I have the memory, I want to remember, like, think of every little detail in his face before I said it, every little sort of position that his body was in, the shape of his eyes, and just in my mind repeat the last words that he said again before I spoke, again and again and again, just to well something up. And then once if I get to a sufficient point of rile, I will try and speak that same word quietly into this sort of material.
The deadly acid of guilt wells up in your stomach as you see his face in your mind. You know it so clearly for the number of times it was pushed up to yours while you were pinned helplessly to the ground during wrestling practice. You know every pit and crag of those merciless eyes. You know the texture of his ruff as it suffocated your face. You know how powerful and brutish his hands were, and how equally powerful and brutish his brow was when it would plow into yours to knock you flat. You remember the words you said, "I wasn't built the way you need me to. I wasn't built that way." And you can see the dispassioned displeasure in his face as he repeated back to you, "It matters not your weakness. Show me your strength." Over the next possibly hour, possibly more, you play out the scene again in your head. You can remember the clothes he was wearing, which also blew to nothingness. You can remember the particular shade that he had dyed part of his beard for war not a month before that was starting to fade by this point. You can remember where the coursers were in the sky behind him, at least the most prominent ones. Do you want to try to speak the word again?
I do. I want to whisper it. I do not. I don't want this to be thunderous. I want to whisper it and sort of hiss it out, and really let all this guilt that has been welling up just surge into this object. And in fact, as I do that, I'm also going to give it a bit of a squish, sort of like a stress ball.
Ma. The word comes out and it sounds different in your ears. There's a crinkling for a moment, and you also feel your heart kind of skip a beat. But then, you hear in your mind, dangerous games you play.
I'm going to put down the bit of sort of sample material that I have and sort of look around and just say, I'm in a dangerous position, aren't I?
Our kind thrive on danger.
Our kind as in you and I, or our kind as in just you?
Kin in more ways than one. I would not overestimate the danger you are in. They are unlikely to take such umbrage at one of your size and age.
One of my size and age just kills someone who bore the title War Master.
All the more reason for him not to have deserved it.
You're going to want to know why. And if this power that I hold has already been deemed as heretical and terrible, it's just going to give people reason to come for me.
I agree. That is the true danger.
Would it be better to leave then? To escape to somewhere where these problems are not mine?
No response. You see that a houseplant on your windowsill has wilted.
I'm gonna hide that. Wilted or died?
Completely dead.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna hide that. By hide that, I mean, is there like rubbish?
You don't necessarily have a rubbish bin, but one of your windows is conveniently located above one of the dumps.
So what the first thing I'm gonna do is take my hand and I'm gonna crunch up the plant, and sort of crunch it into the soil. Because I realize that at the end of the day, I can just put a new plant there. But I am gonna make it look like I pulled the plant out.
Sure.
As if I didn't like it anymore.
Easily done. What would you like to do from here?
From here, I'm going to start drawing out because I'm going to look in a mirror. And I'm going to start drawing out my proportions. And then this is because Lee exists. I'm going to then draw out sort of a human in what a human's natural proportions would be, assuming average human male.
Yeah, to Pyle this would be completely alien, but with you piloting, you can draw this out very easily. You're about the same height. Maybe you're a little bit taller even, and of course you were quite young, so there's plenty of growing for you to do later.
Oh yeah.
The proportions are very striking when you have them laid out side to side like this. The head proportions in and of themselves are also very different, but you can see that just looking in the mirror. You have obviously the gigantic ruff, which is now beautifully braided and neatly posed. There's a very small brain case in comparison to the human, but a much larger jaw, huge jaw, and a huge neck to support it. It's almost like you just transposed all that brain case area and put it there. Additionally, your shoulders are much broader. Your chest is much bigger. You have that big belly. Your legs are proportionally much smaller, but the torso is longer. The arms are so long that they almost touch the ground just when you're standing. And of course, the hands and feet are both colossal. Besides that, in the head, the nose and ears are gigantic in comparison to a human's, but the eyes are quite small.
Okay. And then what I'd like to do is I would like to start sort of doing anatomical drawing, specifically because I'm going to try to visualize the different shapes that that this body versus a human body would have to take for more sort of flexibly guided submission holds, in case
Okay.
I do end up having to come to some element of blows with another
This is going to
Ringbeard.
lead you well into the night. But there's a number of things that are quite interesting that you can determine because of the size of your torso and the size of your belly. You might think that it's much harder to kind of grapple when standing, but your huge arms really help that out and actually make it so that you can quite competently grapple while standing. You could probably grapple a frickin' oak tree while standing pretty effectively.
Yeah.
You might think the legs are a weak point, but kind of couldn't be further from the truth. They're so small that it's kind of hard to get a good lever on them. The knees are incredibly robust, and the feet are so big that it's hard to like tip them off balance, especially with the low hanging belly kind of providing a really useful low center of gravity. The whole body is pretty much designed to not be able to be knocked off its feet. In a way, you could think of the neck as a weak spot, but as mentioned, ringbeard necks are gigantic and very resistant to being throttled, except pretty much by another ringbeard who's putting all their weight behind it. Ringbeards only have one real weak spot, but it's in the most protected part of their body, and it's one that Pyle knows well, and now that you're doing this anatomical study, I can tell you about too. Right here, there is a bit of a swelling almost. Well protected by your huge chin and your ruff, because the ruff itself is like steel wool. It's effectively armor. And that little bulge, it's almost like a big Adam's apple, holds a special organ called a dewdrop. The dewdrop is the ringbeard's brain, or pretty much everything beyond the brain stem and like the primal functions. And it specializes in long-term memory. And like the ringbeards know a lot about the biology of the dewdrop because they study it a lot, and it's effectively the most prized part of their lives. You know what I mean? Like it is the reason they have such good memories. It's almost sacred to them. And additionally, it's how they reproduce, because when they are trying to create offspring, they will effectively cry out of their chin, and these tears seem to be part of what allows a ringbeard who's being sculpted to be brought to life. Now, Pyle doesn't know these things because he is young, but I mean, he's been told about them, but he hasn't experienced it, of course, because he's too young. Only when you become mature can you do this chin crying process. But it's not taboo. It's not like a sexual thing. It's just like oh, you're too young. You'll figure this out.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely gonna sort of. It's a good thing that a great deal of like modern grappling holds are based around the neck. But also it means that most ringbeards who know what they're doing are gonna know how to try and circumvent that.
Oh yeah. The fact that the brain
So,
case is a lot smaller also means that they can duck out of a grab way easier because you don't have that extra bulge at the back of the neck.
so in that case, the more useful way to get things are probably going to be sort of arm bars or leg bars.
The leg bar probably not. They're too small to really get a good hold on. You could try to grab the ears and nose. Those things are really big.
Okay. This is good in case I need it, but I'm. What are now that I've sort of got a good look at the sort of general sort of flexibility, I am gonna sort of do like motions and see what sort of more modern, sort of real world things I can do in Pyle's body, and uh to what extent. So like I'll go into like a plank position,
Easy.
um
You could do this
do
all day.
yeah, do
You can do handstand push-ups effortlessly, by the way.
okay. Uh Sort of I don't remember, is it the yoga pose where you're sort of
Bridge.
your back is to bridge, thank you. Sort of
Yeah.
how high can I make a bridge?
Bridge is harder. You're quite flexible for a ringbeard, but you're not as flexible as a human, and your teeny little legs and big belly make it so that you can do kind of, you can't do a bridge, you can do kind of a square. You know what I mean?
This is fair. But hey, being able to do a square means that I'm able to suplex somebody.
Yeah, you definitely can suplex somebody. Another thing that I would note is that it's kind of tricky to translate this to Lee because Lee is used to humans, but literally throwing a punch with this arm could kill a human pretty easily. You could just crack someone's skull because of how heavy the swing in is and how thick and weighty your arm is. You're made of wood. Just it's effectively like braining someone with a baseball bat that's the size of a frickin' like sewer pipe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But against other ringbeards, not too useful.
Well, I luck still gonna sort of consider my options because while this magic exists, I still don't yet have I don't know how to experiment just speaking a random. The words seem to come to me more than I think of them. Correct.
Somewhat. You definitely need to set the stage with your own emotional state, though.
Okay. In that case, I'm gonna
thing
try.
I should also note, by the way, just because you were asking about moves, shoulder checks. You have big, nasty shoulders, and you can easily, like, your nimbleness relative to most ringbeards can allow you to throw those things pretty effectively.
All right, this is good. That'll help in opening stuff up. Well, in that case, now that I've sort of got, and I will be doing sort of because I have good artistry, I will be doing sort of drawings of different positions.
Yep.
Sort of, I assume I'd be very good in a horse stance.
that's that's a ringbeard mainstay. You're not moving them out of that.
All right. In that case, so
It's probably 3 or 4 in the morning by this point, and you hear a gentle knock at your door, like a.
okay. I will.
Pyle
Speak up. Uh, I will speak out again in Pyle's voice and just, one moment. Do I recognize the voice?
You do. It's a friendly voice. Gherroum. He's one of your tutors.
Ah, cool. I will go over to the door and I will remove the bar and I will open and I will look up to Gherroum.
Gherroum is the lore master of the fief. He knows thousands of songs and the genealogy of every ringbeard living here, and a good number who live elsewhere too. He's also very old, and was Pyle's favorite tutor. He is ringbeard hair doesn't change as they age. Typically, the only way you can tell a ringbeard is aging is that their original material kind of starts to show in their skin, almost like a little added texture. And as such, you can pick out the sandstone that Gherroum was originally crafted from. Not to mention the immense number of wrinkles that are forming on his face.
I will definitely smile at his presence since I know that he was one of Pyle's favorites. Just like, not a overjoyed smile, but a I'm tired, but this is a nice thing smile.
He blinks at you for a moment and looks beyond into the room and smiles and says,
Very good, very good. In times of trial, I find that moping about does nothing but self-sabotage. I'm glad to see you're using it for diligent ends.
It's, as you say, it's better than doing nothing.
Well, forgive my intrusion, my good fellow. I had come to check in on you. Mingkis is rather worried. He doesn't want to say it to your face, but you barring yourself in your room indicated to him you might be considering something foolish. I'm glad I can now assure him that was not the case.
I'm trying to stop being foolish for now. Here, if you would like to come in, you're far wiser than I, and maybe a second set of eyes on might help my mind.
Thank you. I would be delighted.
He trundles through the door.
I will sort of make space for him.
He looks.
I will not hide my diagrams.
Mm-hmm. He looks over your diagrams. He says, My. You see his eyes linger on the drawing of the human. He kind of cocks his head confusedly, but doesn't question it. And as he does so, he says,
You know, I think I can guess what your plans are with these, but it might make for quite a fitting sacrifice, I think.
He blinks and says,
Yes, when you are done with them, of course. Perhaps setting them upon Ibori's funeral pyre could be seen as a token of goodwill. He would be very proud of you to see you taking the martial forms so seriously now.
I hope that in some way I can make his essence proud.
Yes.
I do not feel good about what has happened.
I doubt you would indeed.
He says,
I don't understand how it could have happened.
He says,
You, of course, were unarmed, and the wound was so severe.
He says,
Quick question. Does Pyle know the extent of his tutor's knowledge about his ability?
Gherroum knows nothing. The only other person who knows anything is Obrok. In fact, the fact that Gherroum knows you did it is rather weird, but he has no idea about your celestial tongue from what you know.
In that case, I'm going to look to Gherroum and say, Gherroum, I do not think I would ask this rashly, but can you keep a secret?
My good Hewling, I have kept thousands.
Well, I know. I'm gonna look out the door really quick. Just.
Gherroum takes the cue and goes over and closes it. He says,
If you poisoned him, I would be more shocked than angry.
No, it was not poison.
Really?
It's a secret that Obrok is my hewer, correct?
Sarnuno is your hewer.
Sarnuno,
Obrok is the astromancer.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is something that only Sarnuno and Obrok know. I was born with a celestial tongue, and it has been prophesied to be evil. And in a moment of anger I spoke, and that is what caused him, Ibori, to fall.
He fixes you with a Ringbeard stare, the kind where they don't move a single muscle in their entire body, and their eyes just bore into you, no matter how their lids are falling.
I am definitely not keeping a Ringbeard stare. I'm keeping a nervous, yes. fear.
You can only pull off the Ringbeard stare on non-Ringbeards. It's something that you get with age.
Oh yeah, I'm certain.
He says,
Millennials. I can't believe it.
Millennials being a mild oath.
Yeah.
He says,
all this time, And it has been confirmed. Obrok has... He has indicated beyond a shadow of doubt that this is the case.
Yes. And I know... I will explain to Gherroum the incident with the mirror.
He doesn't look at you, but instead you can see him effectively searching his memory.
Pyle is tapping. He is nervous.
As he listens, he starts to kind of rock in place. You hear him sing gently.
By my beard did he fall away, away. By my beard did he fall away, down low.
He doesn't finish the song.
Do I know the next line?
You don't, but you know the format of the song. It's a what you could call an ancestral hymn, something that it's a song personalized to an important person in the past that you use to kind of recount their deeds and to keep their memory alive. The fact that he was singing it like that, however, in a more minor key, indicates that it was probably a tragedy rather than a great success or triumph.
And I will Pyle will put his hand and sort of hold his nose for a moment and just say, "It's not something I can control, and I have not been taught how. And it has caused great terror."
And not for the first time.
He looks to you, and you see unadulterated tragedy on his face and sorrow.
My poor Hewling. The years are unlikely to be kind to you.
He says,
A secret for a secret, then. I wondered why Sir Nuno forbid me from sharing it. Your ancestor had a similar power. An ancestor of great infamy. One of the very few of your line who was put to the ultimate death.
that line sends a shudder involuntarily through Pyle's body. The ultimate death is a form of execution where you are pushed off the edge into the clouds.
I considered that.
Yep.
And fuck it, I will then say, I find it very fateful then that I considered sending myself to that same fate after Newbury's death.
He kneads his face with his great hand and says,
Palandreso, I am so sorry. Such cruelty to be visited upon you. Such cruelty to be visited upon a line. How could the heavens do this? It is no wonder Sir Nuno's mood has been so foul as of late.
He looks to you and says,
I fear there is precious little I can do. I shall try my utmost, my very utmost. For now, your secret dies with me. I hope and wish that you shall attend my funeral.
Ringbeards don't cry. They don't have the tear ducts for it. But if there were tears to be spilled, he would be.
I'm gonna look to him and say, I know it's a bit of a long shot, but is there any written history or any spoken history that could be hidden about this ancestor? I need to know something about this, because though it may be vicious and uncaring, the less I know, the more dangerous it is, and the more accidents will happen. I have to get control of this, or it will lead to to more demise than I wish to allow.
He says,
I know it exists. His power was far greater than any of your recent ancestors, and so such histories would not be stored here.
he says,
No, they would be somewhere else. At a guess, and a guess only, I would recommend, if you can possibly find a way to get there, checking the archives of Ing.
that's YNGN. That is the largest city within kind of reasonable foot traveling distance to your fief.
What was it, IGN?
YNGN. Ing. He says,
All I know is his ballad. Remember it well. By my beard, my beard, did he fall away, away. By my beard, did he fall away from sight. All his crimes, they were left unanswered, unanswered. All his crimes up above were left undone. And he cursed all our names forever, forever. And he cursed, yes, he cursed all the names of our line as he fell. And his memory, yes, his memory stains our line, our home. Yes, his memory, oh, his memory stains our line, our home. And our pride cannot rest till he leaves our minds.
never before has Pyle heard such an unabashedly negative ballad. They are usually positive, happy even, celebrating one's life.
Well, in that case, I'm going to, as it finishes, there's, Pyle's a little pale, hearing this, but he's gonna look up and just say, do you know the day that he was put to the ultimate death?
Precisely.
He frowns.
Today. 729 years ago. This very day.
His brow creases.
Curses and plagues. Curses and plagues for all millennia. What awful fortune.
I think, besides just going to the archives, I need to... what were the windmills called? The Celestial
Heaven
Towers?
Towers.
Heaven Towers. I need to find a much grander Heaven Tower that would have a record of the position of the planets 729 years ago today.
That may well give you clues. Perhaps Albrook can help. You said that he knows of what has happened to you. He is wise in these matters. He knows much of coarser lore.
Yes, but he has also only until recently even considered and entreated the idea of investigating my powers.
Yes.
I'm worried that he's worried, and that will lead to further issue. But I will try. I will reach out.
Yes.
I need to get this under wraps.
I agree. I very much agree. And Pyle, if you do choose to leave, please seek me out before you do, such that I may give you some assistance for the voyage.
I will. And if I must leave, I will not forget you. Maybe one day I'll be able to come back in one way, shape, or form.
Should it come to that.
He puts a hand on your shoulder. It's about the closest that most Ringbeards get to affection, before he waddles from the room.
I'm going to say, wait.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to approach him and I'm going to say, I don't know if this is something that has ever been done in our culture. Please don't stop me. I'm going to give him a hug. I'm going to give him a full hug.
He looks somewhat perplexed by this.
I'm not quite a wrestler myself, Pyle.
This is not wrestling. And there's no force to... and this is just...
You feel his big, heavy hand pat you on the shoulder again.
Yeah. I back off, and I just think... I could not think of a way better to show my appreciation and care for all that you have done for me.
Ah, youth. It's a wonderful thing. Remember the songs I taught you, Pyle.
I will.
He closes the door politely behind him. It's almost 4 a.m. at this point.
I'm gonna go to my throne.
You drag over to your throne and sit upon it. It comfortably sinks just a little under your weight.
And I am gonna say to the air, if you have a name, I'd like to know it. Talking to myself feels a bit awkward. I don't really care if there's a response.
One word floats in the air.
Anxram.
Anxram. And as Pyle falls asleep, we'll end the turn there.
Whee! I have theories.
Yeah. So, do you mind giving a little chatteroony about what you've learned from this session, what your thoughts are? Like, yeah, let us into your mind a little bit.
Yeah. So I think from what I'm seeing of this, there's some cosmic event, some element of fate, which was probably tied to this curse that an ancestor of mine with a similar power once spoke as he was cast to death. And I'm starting to wonder if that ultimate death is not an ultimate death, but something else. And at the moment, I don't think Pyle will leave just yet. think he wants to at least confront Ibori's, oh my goodness, what's the family term?
Oxbrone.
Oxbrone.
Excellent. What are some other thoughts that you have in terms of your plans or your theories or some of the potential lingering concerns that might stand in your way?
Well, part of me is worried. Again, this is I am worried that if I leave or if I do anything that is sort of incredibly sort of out of character, it will lead to Cernono getting getting punished, and I don't really want him to get punished for this. I'm gonna try and. Pyle is currently considering trying to retrace the steps of his ancestor, and seeing what his crimes were, why they happened, etc., and maybe figure out if there was another reason, something else sort of pushing it all. But at the moment, he is going to his next course of action is reaching out to. Oh my god, names are hard, and I haven't been writing them all down.
That's fine. Oh, Broke? Are you talking about the...
Yes,
the
thank you.
yeah.
Broke. About, and seeing seeing about this history, and seeing about, showing initiative on trying to figure this shit out. And he's going to be a little bit abrasive about it if people give him shit for it.
Yeah.
Because right now, from the body inside Pyle is just thinking, man, y'all saw a problem and did nothing. I bet.
Absolutely.
And I think I have a good stratagem for anyone who I happen to fight, if I have to fight to the death, because I'm fast and I'm flexible, and I know enough about how to use someone's own force against them that I might be able to survive. And I also might make myself some sort of little nasty trick.
All good ideas.
Yeah.
So for this session, I have one other thing, which is that song I actually designed in advance, and I'm going to be sharing a link to it in the description of the video and with you here. So because I will say right now, the lyrics of that song will likely be relevant, especially on the line that you seem to be choosing to pursue.
Yep, I was writing them down feverishly as you were singing it, so.
Excellent. Well, this should make it a little bit easier.
This is good.
Very, very good indeed. Any final thoughts before we sign off? Any idea so you've given us an idea of some of your immediate plans, some of your potential concerns. Anything that you'd like to pitch to the audience in terms of what advice or thoughts you might want to get from them, or what ideas you might want to see them share?
Tell me, talk. I would love to see if people are so willing. I would love to see what people think I should try in the experimentation process with this celestial tongue, to see what sorts of things we can come up with and poke around with to understand more of it.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And in that case, I think we're going to sign off for the day. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, links to Lee's sheet as well as this new song are both available in the description down below. And I hope that you've enjoyed. Make sure to like the video, leave a comment if you have the time, subscribe if you want to see more. And until we meet again, my name is Robbie Howell.
My name is Lee Haber.
And ciao for now, everyone.